Hello, patrons. This is Geoff and Paul here, and welcome to our latest edition of Prestigious Pints. This episode, we got together with an old friend of ours, Nana Abban from Ghana. He came along to one of our training courses probably over 10 years ago, and we've stayed in touch remotely, largely, since. An absolutely wonderful human being and a leading light for promoting Agile throughout the continent of Africa. We caught up with him in his treetop house in the mountains of Ghana, just outside Accra. And we got to talk about all sorts of different things, from his background as a child, his 3 values that he lives by, how he got into project management, his time spent in the UK and other countries, as well as starting up the Agile in Africa conference and getting involved with all sorts of organisations in different countries in Africa, from corporations to farms to communities, and applying Agile principles in various different places that we wouldn't have thought of. Overall, I challenge you to listen to this and not smile, because Paul and I can't have a conversation with him and listen to his wonderfully warm laugh without bringing some positivity into our day. So we hope you enjoy this. Check out Nana if you're interested in anything that we talk about here. Akaditi.com is his website. And cheers.
I'm so glad that you guys were able to connect today.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I was trying to think this morning as to when. I think Geoff might have seen you more recently than me, but I think, wow, probably over 10 years ago. Nana, it must be since we've met. I think must be.
Yeah.
Can't be.
Yeah, it must be. It must be near 2010, 2011. I can't really remember.
Last time I saw you, Nana, you were wearing some blue suede shoes in Southampton.
Yes, very true. That was years ago. Incredible. Yeah. But you guys, seriously, I'm really glad of course, I've been seeing some of the stuff you're doing online, and it's an inspiration. It's always been an inspiration since that course that we attended way back.
Yeah.
I knew back then that you guys would be doing great things in future. It was an awesome course that I attended, and I felt, the combination, the chemistry was right, and your intentions were pure. So that was nice.
It was a good couple of days, wasn't it? We enjoyed it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I loved it. I really had, a really, really good time. So I've always been very fond of you guys since then.
Well, the feeling's mutual, mate.
Exactly,
and I know we haven't really given you much of a heads up as to what this is all about. We just lured you in, but we'll just assume you know nothing about what we're doing. So we've been running a podcast for a few years, and this year we decided to do something a little bit different with it. So we're inviting on people that we believe have been a big influence on Agile in the world and to us personally. So we've had people like Mike Cohn, we've had Esther Derby, Roman, different people like that, and we're calling this our Prestigious Pints. And as someone who's done a hell of a lot for the community everywhere, but particularly in Africa, we wanted to invite you on and have a bit of a chat about your journey, introduce you to the wider world, because someone like you needs to be shared with as many people as possible. So we get together, Paul and I, and we have a little drink. Although it's 11 o'clock in the morning, so it's alcohol free at the moment. But we have a little drink and an unscripted chat.
And I'm drinking coffee, so yeah, it's a bit of a different chat today.
An interesting sign behind you, Geoff.
Well, I just Googled virtual backgrounds Africa pub, and this is what came up. So I'm in the highest pub in Africa, apparently.
I love it. I love the backgrounds. The backgrounds are just amazing.
This is as close to a pub as we get, Nana. So we've got to take it as we get it, I think.
Absolutely. But it's so good to see you guys.
Really
it's been an interesting journey last 10, 15 years. Very interesting journey.
Could you give our listeners a sort of brief overview of who is Nana?
Right. So my name Nana Abban, and I'm a very simple guy. Although people think I'm a bit complex, I try to be as simple as possible. I'm full of energy, highly inspirational, always inspired, always has something positive to say to people. Always like pushing the boundaries and just looking at ways and means for us to keep developing and expanding on our potential, looking for ways to help people to get better at being themselves, bringing out people's potential. I think for me, it's really, you know, I come from a very large family in West Africa, and very large, and the family they go back like more than 3, 4 thousand years, and from my father and my mother's side. So I grew up in a very, very big family, and I left them at 17, and I decided that I wanted to, well, 16 plus, after secondary school, Form 5, I left. I said to Dad, I'm leaving. So then I traveled across the whole of West Africa, just literally plotting, locating, and looking for family members. And I discovered family which had been disconnected for over 100 years. And I think that really laid the foundation for the life that I'm living now, because leaving home at 16 plus, everybody thought he's going to be crazy. His life will not, you know, he'll end up doing nothing. He's going to be a complete bum. And well, I traveled across the West Africa. You know, I found myself in various countries. I drove taxis to survive. I carried cement blocks on construction sites. You know, I did all kinds of interesting things. And I think meeting people, you know, on the ground, grassroots, and just real people, it inspired me. So there's two sides to my family, and I think there's a middle, the third one. In the middle, you've got the moderates who are not so rich. On one side, you've got the super rich, and then the other side, you've got the super poor. Now, growing up as a very privileged kid, and I thought, no, this is not really for me. I thought every time I went to the very super poor side of my family, they would sit together and they would share, 15 people would share one chicken. You know, and that amazed me, because then I go to the super rich, and then there's a 22-seater dining table. Yeah. There's a whole pig on there. There's a whole sheep, and there's everything on there. And there's servants standing around, and nobody's really talking to each other. Nobody's eating the food. And the super poor side of my family, there's 15 people around a big bowl, and everyone's in there eating together. And I think that's when the spirit of Ubuntu really hits me. And Ubuntu is a Xhosa word from South Africa, Zulu, which means that because you are, I am, and because I am, you are. And this is about our shared humanity. And that really got me going, because then I thought, I really like the poor side of my family. I really like their attitude. I really like the way they live. And so, and my journeys across West Africa, the 2 years or 2.5 years from 16 plus to 19, it really opened my eyes, and it laid down the blueprints for the rest of my life. And I thought, well, there are 3 things that I want to commit my life to. One is empowering people. 2, I am very keen to build communities. And then 3, I want to give a better impression of Africa. Yeah. Because I think that Africa is greatly misunderstood. And unfortunately as well, the history of Africa has been whitewashed in a certain way that people think that civilization started with European intervention or Arab intervention in Africa. So I thought, no, Africa is grossly misunderstood, and I wanted to do something. So those 2.5 years, 16.5 to 19, it really opened my eyes a lot to so many things. And I thought, no, this is me. Yeah. You know, yes, I'm a blue blood. Yes, I'm this and yes, and that, but I don't want any of that stuff. So I became more or less the black sheep of the family, the rebel, and the one who went off and did all kinds of really stupid things in their eyes, you know, like, you know, I'm supposed to be in some country somewhere. I don't have enough food, but, you know, there's food in the house. Why don't you just go back home? I refuse to go back home. So, and that really is where I felt I needed something, and it was always on my mind. I needed something that will enable me to have a deeper sense of purpose, more meaning in my life. And the human factor was incredible. I would go to villages where just like me, I would just meet a young white kid or kids, and they're on like like one of those adventure trips in Africa, and they would come into the village, and the village people will welcome them without forgetting the history of slavery and colonization. They don't care about the fact that these things happened. Well, okay, it happened because some things happened in the past. They look at the person as an individual. They don't say, oh, Europeans came to Africa and did this, or Arabs came to Africa and did that. And so because of that, we hate you. No, 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 no. Every stranger, regardless of color, ethnicity, is welcome. And I saw how they would welcome foreigners in villages, and how people would open their doors and just say, yeah, we have a room, stay. I mean, we sleep on the floor. So yeah, all of us sleep on the floor. And I loved that. And I thought, wow, look at this humanity.
Yeah.
Wow.
How did you get from there into the world of Agile?
Well, so 19, I got back to England, and I arrived in England at 19. And I thought, you know what? I think one of the biggest problems affecting people on the ground in Africa is also something that I noticed when I got back to England. I grew up in England for a number of years. I did part of my primary school in England and part of my secondary school in England. And I was sent back to Nigeria, then Ghana, because I was very stubborn in the UK. So 13, I got shipped out of England and I got to Africa, and well, I got back to England at 19. And I thought the biggest problem affecting people in Africa, and from what I'm seeing in the UK, is project management.
Okay.
People don't know how to manage projects and stuff. And so I started doing some project management courses. I thought I wanted to build projects. I wanted to build shelter. I joined the Pan-African Housing Association in Kentish Town. And that even opened my eyes more to, Pan-African refugees from all over Africa. And they were getting, housing association. And then my brother also had what we call a housing association called Umoja, which means unity. And I thought, you know what, I'm really interested in project management. And so I started reading more, learning more. So between 19 and then 21, I did a lot of project management stuff, trying to understand how can I get better and help people back in Africa as well to implement some good projects. And, that's how I think I started really getting into the world of wanting to get my head around some of the complexities, some of the challenges around why organizations were failing to do certain things. So I found myself managing these housing associations, and I moved from there. I thought, no, I want to be a consultant. I want to manage, I want to help organizations to do OD, organization development work. I want to help them to understand what makes people tick. And somehow, I don't know what happened, somewhere along the line, I realized that I had this uncanny ability to, to get my head around very complex things. I would go into an organization and I would be able to see exactly all the different parts. It's like the Matrix, I could see, I could just see, the zeros and the ones and all the lines coming. I could see where all the problems were. And I just thought, wow, okay. Seems my brain, because I was exposed, right? Between that 16 and a half and 19, I experienced something quite big, larger than me. And I think that really opened up a certain part of my brain. So I went into management consulting and organization development, and I went to law school. I thought,
oh, wow.
I'm really passionate about justice as well. I want justice for Black people, justice for Black communities. I want justice for everyone. And so I went into law school, and of course I was less of a student. I was more of a political activist. Because I became president of 11 societies.
Excellent.
And African Society president, law society president, debate society president. So I thought,
did you actually do any work? Did you do any study? Did you do any study?
No. No. half the time I was in the pub, in the bar, and the other half
kind
I
of
was
bar.
actually, yeah. So I decided that I really wanted to understand legal systems and how they work, and I just didn't feel comfortable just making money. I was being paid like £1,200 a day in my early 20s, and I thought, I just wasn't comfortable anymore just making money. I wanted some more meaning. So I went to law school, and that was exciting. And then after that, then I decided that, I really want to take the whole organization development, management consulting, people development more seriously. So that's how I got into the world of agility, coming from family,
Yeah.
and then UK, and then of course going through my various experiences, and then I ended up doing more consulting work. And finally, I just thought, well, because of like pushing the boundaries, I said to myself, I said, there's something, I did all of that for more than 10 years. And I thought, well, this is okay. But then it wasn't so exciting as I thought it would be. So I was looking for something that will help me to move a little bit quicker. Something that will give me more meaning, because the traditional project management, I wasn't really enjoying it as much as I thought I would. So I just felt something was missing. And so I kind of, I don't know, I was just reading, researching, and I came online, found something about Agile, and some guys have got together and done something called a manifesto. And I said, oh, hang on a minute, that's what I've been doing for some time. And oh, these guys have put some words to it. And I started tracking and following Ken Schwaber and a few other guys. And I thought, this is really interesting. Then, of course, Professor Nanaka, I was doing lots of reading, and I realized that even whilst I was doing all of this management consulting, organization development, some project management, I realized that I was changing stuff along the way. I refused to do the spreadsheets. I told them I'm not going to do spreadsheets. I refused to do Gantt charts. I said I'm not going to do Gantt charts. And I kept saying to my sponsors, I'm just going to go talk to people.
Yeah.
I'm just going to talk to them and say, what are you doing? Let's have a chat. Let's sit together and let's talk. And I realized that, oh, hang on a minute. So I started just connecting it from there, that my brain was wired in such a way that I was looking for more agility. I was looking for more meaning and more purpose. And of course, when the Scrum framework and all of that started, and I saw the Scrum values and all of that, and the Agile principles, I thought, yeah, this is what's missing. This is the values and the principles. This makes me feel like it's not just about making money.
Yeah. Do you think so? Is it that family connection? Because that's probably the reason I think I enjoyed and have stuck with the Agile and very much the Scrum way of working. Is it that reconnection of seeing your colleagues more? Is that reintroducing family back into how we work? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the experiences that I had as a kid, but also seeing poor and rich and the in-betweens, and then again, shifting into organization development, management consulting, and project management. I think what really attracted me to Agile and the world of Agile is exactly that. It's that family connection, is people, and being able to talk to people, being able to reach out to people. And I realized that a lot of people that were part of these projects, that they were not just workers, they were mums, they were dads, they were uncles, they were aunties, they were sisters, they were kids of people. And when they come to work, they bring all of that to, they don't leave it in the house.
No.
And when they come to work, they bring all of that, and they bring all of their insecurities as well. And they're looking for a way, or a way of working that will recognize that they're great people. However, they've also got some other challenges. And how can we help them to overcome some of these challenges? By coaching, by empowering. And I realized that some of the tools we were using in the community, in the Agile community, I could take those tools and help people on a personal, individual level.
Yeah.
That just inspired me and said, do you know you can take this framework and set weekly goals, and you can plan on a Monday, and you can review and retrospect on a Friday, and you can set new goals for the next Monday. And that's what really did it for me. And bringing it to that human level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about Agile in Africa then. Is it natural? Was it already there? Needed to be uncovered? Is it a big cultural change? Is that too much of a generalization saying Agile in Africa?
Well, you see, as you guys know, I've been doing a lot of work outside of Africa. You know, Capital One, KLM, Ordnance Survey, and every organization I went to, I realized that what made or helped me to succeed was that every organization that I went to, I took Ubuntu with me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I took this principle of care with me. And I think that every time somebody turned around and said, I feel terrible, I said, really? I feel awesome. And I bet you by the time I finish talking with you, you are going to feel great. And then they start laughing. and that energy, that energy, I realized I was bringing something more to Agile. And so having done all of this great work outside of Africa, I decided that let me start looking at ways I needed to grow in that journey. I needed to struggle in that journey. I needed to experience the pain of that journey in Europe, in America. I needed to really get to grips with some of the complexities in the Agile community and the ways of working. And then when I got my head around that stuff, I said, okay, now I'm ready to take this stuff to Africa. We know the big arguments, SAFe and Scrum and this and Kanban and all of it. And we know all the big arguments, but I'm ready to take this stuff to Africa. So when I came with Agile in Africa, this was about 11, 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically non-existent. And myself and my brother started doing some tests. Well, we ran some Agile stuff. We ran some courses on testing. But I realized that people were like, huh, what's this? And it didn't really click because we thought we could just come straight in and start training people, start coaching people. It didn't really work well. People were like, because they were struggling with everyday issues of survival, looking for food, looking for money, looking for practical things to get on with life.
Yeah.
And I realized that we needed to do awareness. We needed to create this awareness, education, awareness. So that just inspired me. And I just said, Agile in Africa, that's what we're going to do. And so 8 years ago, I started creating all of these ideas around how can we take Agile into Africa. And in 2014, 2015, we decided to basically launch the first Agile in Africa. And today it is, we started in Ghana. And
so what is that? Is that a conference? Is that
it's a conference? It's an event that we do every year. We've done it since 2015. 2014. Sorry, 2014. And it's a conference we do every year. And it started in Ghana. Mm-hmm. We used to have, of course, the face-to-face conferences, and people used to come from all over the world. Every part of the world to come and speak on the platform. And when they come as well, then we do something called Scrum in the Sun.
Yeah.
So when we go to the beach and then we do a whole Scrum thing. So it's called Scrum in the Sun after the conference. So we have Scrum in the Sun after the conference. Lovely. So the conference, for the first 3 years, we had mostly international speakers.
Yeah.
First 3-4 years, we had mostly international speakers. In the 4th year, I realized that we started having more African speakers or more speakers from within Africa. And then all of a sudden in 2019, the platform had, from having 80%, 90% international speakers, and then 20%, 10% from Africa. Now the platform has about 70% from Africa, and about 20% from outside Africa. So it's kind of changed. And then Agile in Africa now, we have Agile in Nigeria, Agile in Gambia, Agile in Rwanda, Agile in Kenya, Agile in Zambia, Agile in Sao Tome and Principe, the smallest country in Africa, 200,000 people.
Wow.
Agile in South Africa. So now we have Agile in Nigeria. We now have about 11 or 12 Agile platforms across Africa, and there are 54 countries, so we've got a lot more to go. So,
that's great, isn't
so
it?
basically, we started from one.
Yeah.
Bit of an
And now
MVP.
Yeah.
So what are some of the differences then? So between some of those countries and each other, because I'm assuming that those countries in Africa, there are some significant differences between them, as well as a lot of similarities. But what are some of the differences there, and also what are some of the differences between Africa in general and the UK?
So the differences between the African countries is really around some countries are very much into new tech, like Kenya, like South Africa. They're a bit more ahead of the curve in terms of new technology. And we found that those countries were embracing, and places like Nigeria, they were embracing Agile a lot quicker than places like Gambia. Or places, for example, like perhaps even Sao Tome and Principe. If my network goes off, don't worry, I'll switch to the next one.
Sorry, no, we still hear you. We still hear you.
It's a good example of personal resilience there, having redundancy in your network so that you can switch from one to another.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, so between the African countries, it's really around the hubs which are really doing well. The differences between Africa and those other countries is really around the countries which have quickly or rapidly adopted technology. Now, Kenya is incredibly insightful because Kenya actually started what we call the mobile money revolution in the world, which is now all over, it's global, where you can send and receive money via your mobile phone. You can go to the roadside and literally go cash out your money from a roadside agent.
Yeah.
And this was a solution which basically a lot of unbanked, there were lots of people, because of language barriers, many of the banks only speak English, French, or Arabic, or Portuguese. And so because of language barriers, many people don't speak English or Portuguese or French or Arabic. And so they were not being banked. And so Kenya really opened up that revolution in terms of enabling grassroots people to adopt new technology and to be able to send and receive money. And those countries like Kenya and others like South Africa that later on started, Nigeria, Ghana, adoption was a lot quicker, adopting new practices, new ways of working. I mean, these guys were already quite excited about new technology. And so they were constantly asking us questions and saying, how can we get better? And how can we work with you guys?
So at this point, were they coming to you for help at this point? These companies, these banks, they were coming to you for assistance on how to do this differently, or how to take on some of these approaches?
Well, they heard about what we did and outside Africa. And the interesting thing is that I always said that international companies in Africa who had operations or headquarters outside Africa will one day take up Agile. And so even though we didn't have much business in the first few years, I just had a strong feeling that Microsoft and Google and Shell and many others are going to be looking at this, because I kept wondering, I said, well, if they were looking at, if they're doing stuff outside of Africa at their headquarters in Holland and in London and other places, in Amsterdam, London, and New York, and other places, then why can't they do the same with their, operations in Africa?
Yeah.
And that really got me thinking, and I felt very strongly that one day they will be coming and reaching out to us, and which they've started doing in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But the difference between these African countries really in the appetite for new technology, and of course the GDP.
Yeah.
Countries with lower GDP like Gambia, it was a bit of a struggle, big struggle, because people were really struggling with just daily living, just trying to survive. And the companies that were operating in Gambia and other places were also just trying to make sense of the new environment and how to get better at whatever they're doing. But they didn't really think about Agile per se. And what I find, again, is also quite similar with some of the countries that I've worked in Europe, or especially in the UK and of course in Holland. What I find the difference here is that we have an abundance of resources in Europe.
Yes.
And I think an abundance of ideas and ideologies and systems and structures and all of that. But unfortunately, I think people are a little bit laid back and they're complacent, because where you have a bit more, let's say, abundance of wealth, where you have more wealth and where you have more resources in terms of infrastructure, people get a little bit complacent in that life, social security. And that's the difference I also picked up between people in Europe and people in Africa. Because there's no social security in Africa, the appetite for new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things, people are a lot more hungry.
Yeah.
And that's what I picked up.
So would you say less kind of, because I was on the course this week and I've been moaning to Geoff already about a course I was on this week, but we still experience a lot of resistance, a lot of pushback, even now, 20 years on since the Agile Manifesto was written. Do you generally find that less with companies in Africa, that they're more willing to try new things?
I think that companies in Africa are a lot more hungry.
Yeah. And
that's because the people are really hungry. They're hungry for more. They're hungry for success. They're hungry to see change. And especially where you have no social security, and where if you're not working, nobody's going to pay your rent or give you any food money. You're going to have to get off your backside and pick up a power bank and go sell it, or pick up a book, and go sell it, I bought this on the road. I bought this on the road right here, not far from where I live. I bought it. Some young man was carrying books in his head and under his armpits and selling. And I think, that's the difference between, we've become a generation of sport brats in Europe and America.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
Because the roads are working fine, the internet's working okay, there's running water. I mean, sometimes I'm here and the power goes off. And I said, oh, okay. And then the water sometimes can probably go off for a couple of hours. Oh, okay. You can see some potholes out there. Oh, okay. And then somebody fixes that, at some point. But when you live in a system where you have to make do, where you have to, it's your survival instincts. Really heightens. And you're able to appreciate life a lot more. And I found that when I live permanently and only just in England, in the UK, we kind of become sport brats, because it's like, we've got everything.
For me, there's always been this entrepreneurial, proactive aspect to the self-organizing team. And you don't just wait to be spoon-fed stuff. You don't wait to be told what to do. As a team, you have to figure it out and collaborate, try something. And what I'm hearing from you there is that's a natural part of life, of culture, in a lot of these countries in Africa. And so that has led to a greater sort of alignment with Agile philosophy, if you like. Is that right?
No, Geoff, you're definitely on points about the entrepreneurial spirit and the fact people just have this hunger, and they have to self-organize. They have to, that is in the cultures, ingrained into the DNA. And that's where I think that we're a bit more complacent outside, and our desire to learn or our appetite for change is a lot less in Europe, America, and the more, places like, some Australia, Japan, and some other places. The resistance is still there to adopting new ways of working.
Do you think, Nana, sorry, Geoff. Do you think, Nana, that's shaped you as a coach? So in terms of, you mentioned obviously family and the human element of your work is very important to you. But that resilience then, and that dogged determination, is that built into you? You just strike me as someone who wouldn't accept no for an answer in terms of we must be able to do this. There must be a way to do this. Driving that type of thing forward.
Absolutely, and I think this is a very important part of what we should be doing with people.
Yeah.
To impart this ability, to empower people, for them to be able to understand that regardless of the challenges you face, you have the potential to rise and to shine.
Yeah.
And no matter what, some days are going to be really stormy, some days are going to be really tough, but no matter what, you have to find ways and means to keep motivating yourself, to keep giving more, and to keep being more. And it is something ingrained into me. You're absolutely, I mean, it's part of my DNA.
Would you, and I think that's a really, because this is something that I remember you for, Nana, at the time when we met. And would you, I think it would be really good if for our listeners, I mean, is there anything that you do, anything that you deliberately, purposefully do on a daily basis that you think helps you remain positive? Any tips you might have for any of our listeners on, because it's a thing I tell all my attendees at workshops time and time again, just try and stay positive, especially at this time in today's environment.
So there's a couple of things that I do every day, and one is it's just something that is environmentally connected. It's spiritual. I'm not religious, by the way, and so for me, I am part of this traditional, ancient spiritual way of life, which is in South America. The indigenous people, like the Aborigines in Australia, the Maoris. Yeah. Melanesians and the traditional people of Europe, the indigenous people of Europe and America used to do the same thing. The tree is part of me. The earth is part of me. The environment is part of me. The sun, the universe is I'm part of that universe. Yeah. And so every day I acknowledge the fact that, I am part of this beautiful creation. And, looking at the beauty of creation, I recognize the beauty is also within me. So regardless of whether it's raining outside or it's stormy and the weather's gray, it's always sunshine up here. Yeah. It's always sunshine up here. And so that is something that is always with me. The second tip basically is that every day I do a daily affirmation.
Okay.
And I write a daily affirmation. I've been writing for 11 years. I have a book about to be published, and it's basically a page a day. And every single day I wake up, I say daily affirmation, because I think that for those of us who are not incredibly religious, we need something to connect us to the universe and the environment, and to give us a sense of purpose and meaning. So I do a daily affirmation where I just basically say a lot of positive things. I look at the person in the mirror and I smile, and I know the person in the mirror is also sort of smiling back at me as well. And I made a commitment as well that every single day, I will, every time I find myself about to think something negative, that I would switch my mind. I will catch myself and say, what is this negative thought going to do for you?
Yeah.
How is it going to help you? You're just going to go down that slippery slope downhill into depression. And what is it going to do? You're going to get diabetes. You're going to get high blood pressure, hypertensive. And then I look at it and I said, hey, back to your positivity, because I don't want any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I keep catching myself, because, if you don't catch yourself when you're about to think negative, you'll end up just getting out of control.
Yeah.
So I made a decision many years ago that looking at people, 16 plus 17, traveling around Africa, seeing so much poverty as well, and so much wealth, I decided that, I've got it good. I've got it good. No matter what's going on with me, I've got it good. And I think this is one thing that agile teams and teams that are looking to work in a more agile way, or organizations or individuals, apart from just the framework and all the practices, I think in terms of that daily motivation, that daily positivity, I think it's necessary if you want to basically work with the power of possibilities
Yeah.
and the art of determination and the power of possibility is something that I always felt that agile teams and organizations that are trying to be agile, they have something missing that they take the framework, they take the Scrum guide, and then they think, okay, we can just make it happen. No, there's this whole cultural shift of positivity and possibility thinking
Yeah.
that you have to also bring into your coaching and into your daily practices. How we feeling? Agile. Let's do it. You know?
And that's
Yeah.
I think you're right.
So,
I think if you get it right, it's infectious, and it's that. And when you couple that with what you mentioned again about this being positive, but telling stories, which I know you've told me and Geoff so many stories in the past as well, because you've got that, you're interested in stories, and you're a great storyteller yourself. You don't. It's not about people that you having swallowed the Scrum guide, or if you can just impart that positive, that sense of possibility. I think it's a great way to tackle any kind of coaching role that you might end up in.
What's one of your favourite stories about Agile in Africa, Nana?
Oh, well, one very favorite story is, one that I remember very fondly. Um, I think this was in our early days. Um, you know, we tried to get a venue to organize the Agile in Africa event. And we were told that it was impossible to get the Labadi Beach Hotel or to secure one of the five-star hotels. We were told as well that it's impossible to organize this particular Agile in Africa. It's not going to work. And you know what? The worst thing you can do is tell me you can't do it.
That's like a red rag to a bull with you, I imagine, isn't it?
That's it. I mean, the worst thing you can do is say, no, it's not going to work. You can't do it. The minute you say that, then that's it. I will do it. I will find a way to do it because
see that as a challenge, don't you?
So, yeah, I mean, so they told us that it can't work, and actually we were told that Agile in Africa would not work. That people are not ready in Africa. People have other things on their minds. Today we have thousands. We have a massive movement across Africa. We got students. We have executives. We got people in nursing. People. Can you believe it? Right here in the villages, on the farms. I'll tell you a bit more about that before we finish. But right in the villages, we are using Scrum. We're using Kanban in the village, and we're not speaking English. We are connecting it to what people are doing locally, what they've always done for centuries, and say, but you used to do this 20 years ago. Why did you stop? But that's the same thing we do in Agile. Oh, it's the same thing? Yeah, it's the same thing. And then, one very interesting story as well coming out of Agile in Africa is I was in a car once and then going to the conference venue, and somebody said, one of the speakers says, "Oh, these guys selling on the road, they're just really trying to understand why they're selling and all of that stuff." And I said, "Well, guess what? These guys, what they don't have is the framework. They don't have the framework. They're very agile, but they don't have the practices. They don't have the framework to be able to scale their business. So imagine if we can go and give them something to help them scale up, or to not scale up as in millions and no. I mean, to help them to grow from carrying this belt and running after the cars to actually saying, okay, you know what you're trying to do? Have you planned this properly? Have you organized that? Have you?" And then they said, "Oh, hang on a minute." So I took a couple of people, and it's worked. So you can plan, you can organize yourself better, you can have a simple way of doing stuff, and they finally understood it. But these guys on the streets who are selling and running after the cars, if they only had a framework to organize, then the agility would be 400-500%, because I can see that they have the basic ingredient, which is they want more from life.
Yeah.
It's not just about money. They want more from life. They're really keen. And I wanted to make sure that I share this thought with you today. two things that we've done since coming to Africa, rather than just waiting for companies to come to us, to Agile in Africa, or to come to Akaditi to come and learn about Agile and all of that. We've been doing some great stuff with big companies in Africa. That's great. But two things that we decided to do. Rather than wait for companies and organizations for these events to start and to do these events, we decided that we're going to take Agile into the community. Mm-hmm. So what we decided to do was to start building technology solutions and engaging people. So payment solutions, shopping solutions like Amazon, like Alibaba, but the African alternative.
Yeah.
And then also delivery companies. So we built, and now we're building a bank with no branches, not a single branch, like First Direct.
Yeah, yeah.
With no charges, no fixed costs and all of that nonsense, and no transaction charges. And so we go into the community and we look for, hey, what's the problem here? Oh, we're having this experience. We don't know how the crops are doing. Okay, guess what? We'll provide an application to do that. And a little bit of big data, a bit of AI, and we just help them. All we do is a little bit of technology, and we just help them to form themselves into a small Agile team. And that's it. They get it. They're gone. Yeah. Now, the other thing that I've been doing, basically is I'm a farmer now. So apart from running a high-tech business with a transformation business in the city, I'm also a farmer.
Wow.
I've gone into organic farming. We're growing moringa, we're growing ginger, we're growing garlic, we're growing all the medicinal plants.
Wow.
And medicinal trees and lemon trees, papaya, pawpaw. We're growing organic food, we're growing organic medicine, and we're producing products as well, which we're now putting online, we'll be selling online and all of that. But basically, we've taken Agile and plugged it into like local challenges, and we're using it to solve local problems on the ground. And it's opening up different aspects of different parts of my brain, because it's really amazing that, at a local level, really in the jungle, in the bush, we're able to bring, these wonderful ideas to people. And so that's, into Agile in Africa has now, I came to Africa because of Agile in Africa.
Yeah.
And now we have these technology solutions. We now have these agricultural solutions. We go into the community to do more farming. And now we have quite a number of acres. And I'm also doing Land Rover Defender restoration. That's a 1972 Land Rover, Army spec, British Army.
Lovely.
And I'm doing Land Rover restoration, restoring Land Rovers.
What are your Nana? What are your hopes and dreams for kind of the next few years, or the next few, the next steps for Agile in Africa? Where are you hoping it goes? Whether it's with you or beyond that?
I have a couple of things in mind, and for me, I think one, I'm looking to grow our partnerships with organizations and individuals like yourselves. Mm-hmm. I want to grow those partnerships, not just with organizations like Scrum.org or Scrum Alliance or Agile Alliance, but I want to grow partnership with people who are doing coaches on the ground, who are not necessarily part of the large organizational membership bodies.
Yeah.
To grow more partnerships with people like yourself, to bring in ideas. And the stuff that I'm learning on the ground, maybe all the coaching I'm doing with local people, grassroots people, maybe there's ideas that I can also help contribute to what you guys are doing outside. So that's one in terms of partnership. The other one, which is really exciting, is that we've now, after, it took us about 3 years, we've now been registered. We now have an organization registered, and this is where you guys are going to get really excited, and people watching this later. We now have the first registered certification body in Africa.
Oh, right, okay.
And it's called Professional Agile Certification for Africa. And it's PACA, P-A-C-A for short. Mm-hmm. We are going to be teaming up with organizations like yours, individuals like yourselves. We'll be running courses it's going to be like an Agile supermarket. We'll have SAFe on there, Kanban, Scrum, lean startup. And basically the whole idea is that this is a certification body, the first one, because most Africans have to go outside to Europe and America and get certified, or India.
Yeah. Okay.
And get certified. So we would negotiate a discount with organizations like yours, or people that provide courses, and then we'll pass those discounts on to people on the ground. However, what we will do as well is that PACA, the idea of this certification body is that we are the icing on the cake. When you've got your PSM and your CSM and your ASM, Advanced Scrum Master, and you've got all your wonderful certificates from outside, we will help you to contextualize it and localize it for the African market.
Okay.
And that's all we're doing. We're just going to put the icing on the cake, the crown in the jewel. We're just icing on the cake and say, look, you got the CSM. That's great. You got the PSM. You got the ASM. Wonderful. How do you translate all of that into the African context? So the certification body, PACA, has now been registered by the government, and it's become an Africa-wide certification body. And it's very exciting because I'm going to be working closely with you guys as well, and some of your listeners, because I know people will be interested. The third thing that I'm working on is that I want to disrupt the Agile community globally.
Oh, wow.
With
Okay.
Ubuntu. And also I want to add the 13th principle to the existing 12 Agile principles. I want to add the 13th principle, which is care, the principle of care. I'm about to launch a website which people can sign up. I've been talking about it at Scrum Day London and other events and Agile in Africa. And the principle of care, because what you care about, you pay attention to. And when you look at care, it's a really powerful word, because you can love somebody, but maybe you don't even care about certain things. You can say that you're committed to something, but how much do you care about it? So when we look at the word care, I think it's something that is so powerful, and it's tied in to something that I've been promoting as well, which is H2H, which is human to human, the Ubuntu connection.
Yeah.
And H2H, so I'm saying it's no longer about B2B. It's no longer about B2C or B2G or B to whatever. It is H2H, human to human, because all the B2B, B2G, and all of those models are great. But for me, the future is about disrupting that model, which was a 20th century model, and now looking at the human to human connection, connecting human beings in organization to human beings in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And it's even more important now that we're physically distanced, but we have the technology to connect. So where can people find out more about that, Nana? You say a website, where is it?
Yes, so they can go to akaditi.com, akaditi.com. But we have a separate, a separate website which is about to be launched. I'll get the name out to you later, but it's going to be something around. I think we're looking. I can't remember the domain name that we gave it. We're looking at several domain names, but akaditi.com for now, and we'll have a page there, and from there you can go straight up to this page that we've put up. It should be launched this weekend. And the whole idea, basically, people can just sign up and say, yes, we want to disrupt the 12 Agile principles. And I just feel, Geoff and Paul, I just feel that if these things were created 20 years ago, then we need to start thinking seriously. We just finished the festival. We need to start thinking seriously about, is there more we can do?
Yeah.
Is there something that we can add to this, especially with this pandemic and with what's going on in the world? Is there a way for us to bring something special, something unique about us, our humanity, to the 12 Agile principles? Is it time for us to really reflect on the core values and think, how can we tweak it a bit more to make it less software, and more people,
I think you're right, yeah. And I think there's a lot, obviously there's a heck of a lot of bad things that have happened during this pandemic, and I'm not in any way downplaying that, but I think what I'm hoping for, I think what we're all hoping for, what will come, maybe even, a lot of people are talking about the idea of the Roaring Twenties, the idea that when we exit this pandemic, that we will see a bit of a bounce and a bit of a wave of positivity, and I really do hope that happens. And I think I hope it's all based around reconnecting as humans and getting back what we've missed out on. And yeah, if that happens, that for me that would be a great thing to happen out of this.
I really do believe that something very powerful is going to come out of this pandemic.
Yes, I think you're right.
It's been this is a good opportunity for us to reconnect with you, and it's something that was long overdue, and hopefully we'll get to do it in person at some point, not too distant future. But I want to encourage anybody who's interested in empowering others, building communities, and building a better impression of Africa to get in touch with you through akaditi.com, or many of the other wonderful people doing lots of work to promote Agile in Africa. So check out the Agile in Africa website, check out Nana. Yeah, thanks again for joining us, Nana. It was absolutely fantastic to hear all about what you've been up to.
Thank you. I have to say that I kind of decided recently, that not long ago, that I was going to go underground and just work in the bush, and I'm not doing any of the media engagements anymore. But I couldn't resist Paul and Geoff. I just could not resist.
You're too kind. You're too kind.
Paul, I've said no to so many people, and I said no, I can't do any media stuff. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And honestly, when you guys reached out to me, I mean, I missed an opportunity. I think that was in the UK, Geoff, for us to do something. I think somewhere in Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
3-4 years ago, and I really missed that, and I thought, damn, I missed that opportunity. I said, I'm not going to miss this one with Geoff and Paul. So as soon as my PA confirmed that it's we want you, this is happening, and I said, no, I'm all in. She said to me yesterday, I said, what's the topic? It says, just an open chat about you and what you're doing. And I just responded, I said, super. I'm whether or not I knew what it was, I said, I'm all in. So I've always felt that we will definitely be crossing paths one day, and I'm so glad that today we've connected, and I'm looking forward, with Agile in Africa, with the farm, with the treks that we're doing, with all the other things that we're doing. I'm looking forward to having you guys visit Africa one day.
Absolutely, yeah.
Come to Ghana. And so, again, some of your listeners, I really want to encourage them to look at the concept of Ubuntu and to see how Ubuntu and this positive daily affirmation can play a better role in their lives, but also at work in developing their potential. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you guys.
No awesome. Problem. Thank you, Nana. Yeah,
raise you a glass. Cheers.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
All the best.
Till next time.
Thank you.